begin.
Hello and welcome everyone to SystemSoft Technologies LinkedIn Live series, Ask an Expert. Thank you for joining us. My name is Mark Imhoff and I'm head of security here at SystemSoft Technologies and will be your moderator today. This is the first of three-part series on your journey to Secure Score for Microsoft 365 and Cloud Advisor today. Our experts will be talking to you about why you should care about Secure Score and answer any questions, including, is my environment secure and safe? We welcome your questions, and please submit them in the comments section. Now let's introduce our experts, our panel today. First, we have John Micah, a senior security architect at SystemSoft. Hi, John.
Hi, Mark. Hi, thanks for having me. Just a brief introduction to myself, my background. I've been in the industry well over 20 years now. Started off with network engineering, designing, building, and then ultimately running mission critical infrastructure for the financial industry, which naturally leads into security and one of the most important aspects of running an environment, especially when it comes to mission critical real-time environments. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Also joining us is Greg Wilson. He's a senior security architect at SystemSoft Technology as well. Hey,
Greg. Hey, Mark. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Also, security architect here, much like John, here on behalf of SystemSoft Technologies. I've been working as a consultant in and out of banks and hospitals for around 15 years. And I've been doing secure score assessments for about 5 years now, amazingly, since about 2017, for a plethora of different environments, not just banks and hospitals, but fast food joints and everything in between.
Great. I would also like to add, he's on my team. Both of them are my team. He just got certified on AZ 500, as well as the certified ethical hacker as well. So good job on that. Lastly, we have one of our new partners joining us, Micah from BlueVoyant. Hey, Micah.
Hey, Mark and SystemSoft team. Thank you so much. And congratulations on those certs. That's amazing. Very good ones as well. My name is Micah Heaton. I'm also an Azure and M365 security administrator. I hail from sunny Florida this time anyway, and really grateful to join my new friends and colleagues and partners in SystemSoft Technologies. Appreciate the opportunity to make a contribution today.
All right, thanks, Micah. So let's get started with our conversation today. So first thing I really want to talk about is not Secure Score, but kind of set some foundational kind of discussion. And one of that is the misconceptions around SaaS as being secure. Now, SaaS comes somewhat secure, but I'd really like your input on this, John, at your point of view about SaaS and being secure.
While SaaS can be secure, it's a very easy way to spin up machines. Whether it's an AC2 instance or an Azure instance, very easy to spin it up. However, in that ease to deploy, also comes that responsibility of making sure that it's secure. So I think what a lot of companies do, and people, and just individuals, while rushing to deploy that machine, they have a deadline, they need it deployed. There's in a sense, a lack of planning. A SaaS environment is just like any other environment. You have to make sure it's secured from the ground up. The cloud does a great job of securing the physical side of security, but we can't overlook the basics, blocking and tackling for a SaaS environment. Whether it's routing, what can talk to what's allowed to talk to other devices on, other subnets, as well as your access lists, working up to your firewalls, and how clients and users are actually going to be accessing those. So it can lead to the whole idea of shadow IT, things being developed, and organizations not knowing, what's out there, because developers are in a rush to get things done. They have a timeline and deadline. So one of the things I do actually like about Microsoft is they kind of put that back into the hands of the users in a general checklist. And these are all basic blocking and tackling things that you need to do, whether it's in a SaaS environment or a bare metal environment. And they can't be overlooked. Simple things like, making sure your systems are updated, identity access management, all these things build into that secure list. So I actually do applaud Microsoft, for taking the lead in that and making sure people don't forget. So it's from the administrator, the developer, all the way up to the senior manager, who can actually start looking at these things and making sure that the things are checked off the list. Whether it's low hanging fruit or more intense security applications that have to be built into the environment. Bottom line, planning.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. My 2 cents on that would be that, a SaaS environment gives you a great, like you say, it's the quickness or the agility of getting it added into your environment is quick, but don't forget to do your due diligence, and there's still more work to do from a security standpoint. So Greg, real quick, what's your opinion on this misconception that SaaS is, comes out of the box fully secure?
Yeah. That's the big key, out of the box configurations. I agree. We're now with cloud and SaaS, everything is moving at the speed of business. So we're moving faster than we can think about it. So we have to take a moment and start thinking about it. One of the things people forget or may not know about is oftentimes they just assume that the vendor has set up or configured things out of the box. That Microsoft is giving you this solution. They're giving it to you in a way that's already secure, and they've got stuff set up, and you're good to go. And you just need to go get all the infrastructure pieces in place. Whoever it is giving you this, and you just have to get the functionality going, and not think about security. And that's quite the opposite. Microsoft has done a really good job with this secure score thing, highlighting those things. One of the things I also see is what's worse is they assume that the vendor is taking the responsibility when it's absolutely not. Microsoft does not take responsibility for securing your environment for you. That's, again, one of the reasons why they're emphasizing this and showing you these tools and showing you this in a big broad picture, and saying, get in here and start setting up and securing yourself.
No.
I think one of the big things to keep in mind is the cloud environment or cloud providers did a great job of securing the environment from their users. So their underlying infrastructure is quite secure. The users have to go through and make sure that their infrastructure and their, whether it's a VPC or, their local cloud or private cloud, is secured from everyone else.
Right. I would like to add, though, just because it's a SaaS service doesn't mean it aligns with your policies. So you got to make sure, your policy that falls within, you got it set up to align with your policy and procedures as your organization, right? Okay. I'm going to switch subjects real quick, and we're going to go to accessing free tools and in Azure and M365 platform. So this kind of really gets into, hey, depending on your license level, you have certain tools accessible to you to run your environment. Not everybody understands that you got a tool called Secure Score. So, Craig, can you kind of go over and talk about Secure Score?
Yeah, absolutely. So we mentioned it before, but Microsoft's really trying to highlight all of the different tools and configurations and all the different things you can access for M365 with this piece. So it's a nice single pane of glass. It's a nice view of all the different configurations, every tool that they have. Again, as you mentioned, it depends on your licensing levels and stuff like that, or what is actually going to be in there from a functionality standpoint. But they give you this so that you can get in there and start clicking around and start seeing all the things you have. A lot of organizations will start buying tools to hit those check boxes, especially when it comes to compliancy and things like that. They're just rushing out. Again, we're moving at the speed of business, get these boxes checked. And they never went in here to figure out that they already had this available to them right from Microsoft. So again, getting in there, you can see stuff like multi-factor authentication. You'll see things that you can set up and configure. A lot of people know it's there, but they don't know how to get to it. This will give you a nice, easy place to go in there, start going through the list and clicking in, gives you the links right there. You can jump into multi-factor authentication, start getting it set up and enabled. There's lots of other things. There's logs that you can go through and regular reports that it will generate and spit up for you so that you can go and review and start looking into these things.
No, that's very interesting. So, how about you, Micah and Blue Voyant? What's your view, kind of your global view on Secure Score? And can you kind of talk about the license a little bit? What level you have to be where it's free within your environment?
Sure, no problem. It's really nice to be amongst some kindred spirits here, kind of speaking a common language. If protecting your cloud and digital estate was as easy as buying a license, then the world wouldn't be dealing with a cybersecurity talent shortage the way that they are. So I really like the points these guys are making about the blocking and tackling analogy in particular. It's important to kind of really understand where your investments are in the Microsoft space. And I actually think that Microsoft makes it fairly easy to review this. So any license level that you have, if you have an Office 365 tenant or you've got, the big Kahuna M365 E5 license, you have access to the single pane of glass that Craig was talking about, which is at security.microsoft.com/securescore. And in fact, if you forget that after the slash and just remember security.microsoft.com, it's probably going to be the first kind of mini report that pops up. Now, it's true that depending on your license level, there are certain things that you will or will not be able to action on or remediate on. For instance, protecting certain kinds of data from leaving the organization or entering a third-party cloud, like John was talking about a moment ago, you might need a different license for that. But any level of license will give you kind of a nice introductory floor to take a look and review the material. And you shouldn't be overwhelmed. I think Microsoft also does a very good job of displaying the information in a way that's accessible and meaningful. You don't have to be a cybersecurity expert to review it. You might find as you're looking through the list, though, that you'll be looking for the assistance and attention of a partner like SystemSoft Technologies to just kind of help socialize some of the language, the Microsoft lexicon, the cybersecurity concepts, and clearly a great group and a bunch of folks to help do that.
Thanks, Mike. And I'd double down on that and say, we've talked about this in other LinkedIn Lives during Cybersecurity Month in October. And, security is a journey. It's not a sprint, right? And partners like us, I am Blue Voyant. Thank you for being a great partner. And definitely we could help in those areas. Now, with that said, let's talk more about Secure Score and what it covers. So I don't know, Mike, if you could kind of kick this off, this discussion, but
Sure.
Okay, we got Secure Score. We know kind of where it's at now. Okay, great. I'm a customer. What do I do with this Secure Score? What does it kind of cover? Can we get a little bit more in depth on what it kind of covers?
Yeah, 100%, and certainly encourage any of our attendees and listeners to add their comments. We're getting some good feedback, but if you've got some specific questions, please take the opportunity to ask so you don't walk away without an answer. Craig and I were kind of noodling on this in a previous discussion. What does Secure Score really cover? The way it's laid out is just kind of give you recommended actions, mostly from ease of implementation to difficulty. But I think the majority of Microsoft security configurations and just kind of philosophical separation, you can break it up into identity, data, and device discussions. And the reason why, to John's point much earlier that Microsoft has so much success with SecureScore being this tool that lets you evaluate your risk and gap analysis in your digital estate is because they own a decent amount of the pie in the operating system in Windows, the productivity and collaboration environment in Office, as well as the identity solution in both on-prem and in the cloud in Azure Active Directory. Because you can see all of that, SecureScore allows you to watch as risk kind of modulates throughout your environment across those platforms. So if you needed a way to get started and answer that question, what is SecureScore going to let me see in action on? Putting some lines on the whiteboard and spelling out identity, data, and devices is really a good way to start. Thinking about it in those categories gives you somewhere to go.
Excellent points, Micah. Greg, why don't you kind of elaborate a little bit more on that? Because to me, some of the things I liked about it as well, I mean, besides just the categories and what it covers, it also gives you a list of all the things it's found and a priority and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So more into that, please.
Yeah, absolutely. As you mentioned, they're going to split it up into 3 areas that they split up the 3 areas into 3 areas. So you'll have data, device, and account as well. And the data side, you're looking at all your calendars, your mailbox forwarders, everything like that, and you're securing your data. It's going to give you, I don't want to say a roadmap, but a nice path to follow to take care of all your data security needs. And then going into accounts, it's going to look at your admins and your roles and your users and how you have all that set up and kind of how you have it configured. And you can, again, take actions on those, set up single sign-on stuff, everything like that is going to be under account. And then under devices, they have it broken out into your phones and your tablets and your configurations along the lines with devices and how security is going to reach out, branch, and cover those devices to really kind of lock down and elevate your security posture. Right.
I think one of the big things I liked about it as well, and I kind of mentioned earlier, it gives you that list that you can kind of take it out and export it to whatever you want. And you can create you a nice roadmap. Like I said, it's not a sprint, it's a journey when it comes to security. And, and it gives you a way to track your progress in making your environment more secure. I mean, it does give you a score. And if you guys would like to touch on the score, I mean, scores somewhat important, but I think the bigger piece that teaches you or shows you the possible holes within your environment or areas that you're a weakness in, right? And you could use that to drive enhancing your security posture as an organization.
Yeah, and along those lines, Mark, it's important to that checklist. It doesn't matter if you're going for a NIST framework or SOC 2 certification or whatever certification or HIPAA, whatever you might be subject to. These are all things that are important in any security framework. So, Microsoft Azure, maybe the Active Directory isn't directly, in your realm. Well, you may be using Okta, so you have it covered. So security score may not necessarily cover that, but these are all things, and it's important to note that regardless of what framework you're using, these are all things that you have to be looking at, and these are all things that have to be within your security view to make sure that you have them covered in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not necessarily covered under Microsoft, but they have to be covered by
it's one piece of the pie, right? Really is what you're trying to get at, right? It's one piece of the overall security pie, and it's a great free tool to utilize to help you to make sure you keep your environment secured.
Yeah, so even if you're not using Microsoft to solve that problem, make sure you're using something.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So let's close this part out. So could you guys kind of talk a little bit about the score itself, Micah?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to throw you a curveball there, Mark, and just generally agree with John that I really wouldn't get hung up too much on the score. Craig and his kind of delivery background can probably talk to us about like the upper limits of those maximums. But what I would be mindful of, and I coach folks through this in their licensing kind of provisioning journeys, is you definitely don't want to get hung up in terms of I need to buy more things in order to increase my score. It's really about what are the common denominator activities that I need to tackle in order to achieve a specific outcome. And if it's regulatory agency that's coming down on you to, you're beholden to them for some kind of specific compliance, to John's point.
Mhm.
And any compliance certification worth its salt is going to have you do, very specific set of things like MFA, like data leakage prevention policies for your productivity and collaboration environment. So I personally try not to preach the higher the score, the better, but simply encourage the exercise of reviewing the improvement actions, which is a specific tab in Secure Score, and identifying those specific things that you can action on in-house on your own, as well as the things that you possibly need to accomplish with a partner, and prioritize those into a kind of roadmap, like you mentioned earlier, Mark, is really important. But I'll popcorn over to Craig to kind of give us a breakdown of the scoring. I suspect he probably knows that answer.
Yeah, I can. So really, it breaks it down to a percentage. But when you start going in there, it does give you actual like specific points. And for MFA and things like that, it'll give you X amount of points. And you end up with a total, depending on your license and your configurations, a total of around 650 odd points that are available for you. But really, as I'm going to reiterate what they said, you're taking best practices. All of this is exactly best practices as set up based on nothing else, no outside information. So you need to take these best practices, you need to combine them with what your business requirements are and what you guys have for an understanding of your layout, everything like that. And then what we call recommended practices. So we're going to start implementing recommended pieces based on the best practices. So this is the perfect, ideal, real world, unreal world scenario, and we're going to put it in a real world practice. We're going to end up with a recommended solution, and we're going to have all these configurations. Because as they said, some of those things aren't going to be evaluated. You might be solving MFA through some other tool, and you don't need Microsoft to evaluate that.
Exactly. It's all relative, right? And
it's relative.
One thing I want to bring up, and we talked about it before, is that access. When you do run this tool, make sure you got the right access, because you might only get it for your portion of the environment, not your enterprise environment, right? So I just wanted to point that out. But at this time, I'd really like to move on to some questions that we have and start off with those. So here's a perfect one to start. This is how Secure Score calculated. So can you kind of get a little into the depth into that, Greg, since you were just kind of talking about it?
Yeah. Basically, it's going to review the configurations you have, and it's going to assign those a value, and it's going to tell if you have it enabled, you get these points. If you have it somewhat enabled, you're going to get these points. Now, a lot of them aren't just enabling things, but it's reviewing things. So again, I mentioned way earlier that they have logs and things like that. They have reports that they will generate and show you, like, hey, you have this amount of people coming back and saying, having failed login attempts for one of those reports. And you can see how many times people have had failed logins. Reviewing those reports and going in there is going to give you some amount of points. You have to do it on a regular basis so that you know that you're in there and reviewing and actually digesting that information and doing something with it. Because if you just go in there and click it to get the points, that's not making you any more secure. Going in there and actually understanding the report, knowing what you're looking at, saying, oh, the CEO just tried to log in 400 times at 2 a.m. There's probably something wrong with that. So, digesting that information, super important, and Microsoft understands and knows that, so they try to kind of incorporate how that is being digested into the Secure Score. So go in there, review things, look at things, click around, start understanding those pieces.
Right. And that's where if you're if you're in the audience and you're like, well, I've never used it, I don't understand it, I think Micah helped us out earlier on that. That's why we're here. We've used it a lot. We can talk about different use cases that we've endured during utilizing this tool, and we're always here for you. So with that said, let's move on to the second question, which is how can I improve my secure score? I know we kind of talked about it a little bit. You might be using different products, so secure score is not necessarily always the most accurate thing, but you just got to take that in consideration of your overall environment in a sense. So I just basically answered that one. So how often does secure score update, Micah? How can you answer that one?
Yeah, I actually, I was talking to somebody yesterday who's an MVP in the Microsoft community. If you're not familiar with that term, it's just somebody who's basically been nominated as an industry expert outside of Microsoft's full-time employees. And he said something incredible to me. He said that the amount of toggles and the buttonology in the the M365 admin environment, there's roughly 120 changes to that environment a year. That could be a new feature, that could be something being changed, that could be something that's removed. And usually I see like a bi-weekly update cadence for things like Secure Score. But just know that the Microsoft environment is always changing. So it's very difficult for you to keep visibility over all the different kind of aspects and buttons. The GUI, the interface will change. No functions might change, but they might, move things around a little bit. But Secure Score will always be that kind of mainstay place where you can keep your ducks in a row, despite what Microsoft's marketing and focus group testers do to the interface. You can always find your way back home in the Secure Score environment, but it's always regularly being updated to track things that are coming out of preview into general availability. Mark.
On top of that is a lot of just to make sure we answer the question is if you're looking at it for I've made a change, I've implemented something within Secure Score. When is my Secure Score going to change? That updates on a nightly basis.
That's a good point.
So if you're coming from that angle.
Excellent. Let's do one more, and let's talk about, because there's other tools besides Secure Score, right? Secure Score just gives you kind of a view of what your environment's like, but there's other products in there that we want to talk about. And one of them, question was about Azure Sentinel. John, can you kind of cover that one?
Yeah, sure. Azure Sentinel is Microsoft's entry into the SIM world. So, your security information and event manager. They also tout it as a security orchestration, automation, and response tool. I believe also they like to claim that they're the first cloud-based SIM out there.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, that's all we have time for today. This wraps up our first episode on a 3-part series, Your Journey to Secure Score and Microsoft 365 and Cloud Advisor. Thank you for joining us. Please join us in our next episode. You have Secure Score, now what? So we're going to go into a little bit more in depth about Secure Score and than what we have today. In the next series, and then our third series, we're actually going to give a demo and showcase us using Secure Score. So please, I would say, sign up for those today. Also, we have now with that. So contact us if you would like to talk about security or Azure in general. And also, one of the kind of carrots I want to put out there is in the future, once this 3-part series is done, we're going to be offering some free services for a certain amount of audiences. And thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you on part 2.
Hey, thank you, team. Great
to
be here.
I want to thank the whole panel as well. Thank you very much for everybody joining.